folks. My name's Pete Bruce. I'm with Bridges, Bridges by Epic in Westwood. How many of you have actually done any part of the other three-part series? That's great. It's always good to see everybody again. I know some folks have given, myself and Maggie will be back in a second. We're doing something a little bit different tonight. So in the past, we've done some education PowerPoints. We've done one which was, is it memory loss or is it just, getting older? We did one presentation on the various forms of dementia, and we also have done another presentation on, what was the other presentation we did?
Effective communication.
Effective communication. Here I am. I'm forgetting. It's been a long day, folks. But effective communication. I had mentioned to one person who just showed up. If you want any copies of those, we're more than welcome to give them together, give them to you, and get them over to you. We're not going to sit up here and speak much tonight. Each one of our wonderful panelists who have come, our experts in the field, are going to speak for a little bit, and then we're going to open it up for questions and answers. Because frankly, we can tell you all kinds of things that are happening out there, trends and whatnot, and this is what happens. But really, most folks who are here, and I've seen you raise your hands, I've asked the question before, how many of you are here, this joke gets a little old after a while, but how many are you here for just as caregivers? Raise your hand. How many of you are here for education? And how many are here just for the food? So the thing is that we do understand that you guys have, you just want information so you can have tools in the toolbox. Well, here you go, tools in the toolbox. You can ask any of you, these folks. Maggie and I, Maggie Kariakis and myself, who work for Bridges, we've worked with all of these folks, and they're here for you too. And if we weren't supporting you all, we are not doing a very good job. You guys do the yeoman's work. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk. I'm going to introduce each person tonight, and then they'll speak a little bit, and then open it up for question and answer. I have these little tickets here. I'm going to come around as we're kind of going through the program tonight and give you one if you want it. If you don't, that's fine. There's no secret to it. We have some books here we're just going to give away. There's 3 books, so your chances are a little bit better to get something you want. With that, I'm just going to introduce, we have Brian Mahoney, who is with he's an elder law attorney. We've got Debbie Higgins, who is with Cornerstones Caregiving, president. We've got Janice Tolley with Julia Ruth House. That's like a day program. It's one of the best around. We've got Cheryl. What is your last name? Cheryl Leary. Cheryl Leary is with HESCO, state-run program, right? And Lena is my good friend, buddy, from the Westwood Senior Center, so she'll talk as well. So maybe what we can do is start down with Brian. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about what you do and how you support folks who are looking for help.
Okay. Good evening. I'm Brian Mahoney. I'm an elder law, estate planning, probate attorney. Out of Canton, I've been doing it for 40 years, so I do a lot of wills, trusts, powers of attorney, healthcare proxies, Medicaid, nursing home planning, long-term care applications, probate of estates. A lot of my work is to keep families out of probate court, and the most important document anyone can have is a healthcare proxy and a comprehensive, durable power of attorney. Thank you.
Hi, nice to see most all of you again. Debbie Higgins with Cornerstone Caregiving right next door in Norwood. I also have worked with most everyone up here, and it's nice to be able to help reach out to the community, educate, and to provide the support that people need and answer questions. Cornerstone, we specialize in non-medical home companion care. That could be anything from light housekeeping to bathing, toileting. We run errands, drive people to doctor's appointments. I'm very proud that I am approved by the Veterans Administration. I take care of veterans in their homes as well, and I also have relationships with properties such as Maggie and Pete's, where families will hire me because their loved one might need that extra one-on-one care in an assisted living, memory care, or independent living. And we have a lot of caregivers that specialize in taking care of folks with dementia.
I think by now you all know me, but just Maggie Cariaco. So Pete and I work over at Bridges by Epic at Westwood, and we are a community. We're a memory care assisted living community where individuals come to live with us. They would rent their own apartment. We are a secured environment. We are right on University Ave, across from Wegmans. But yeah, it's a place where residents can do everything right. You know, we don't talk about the disease. We don't talk about, not remembering something. We talk about the happy times and the day-to-day, and residents come to us and they're able to prosper. It's just one piece that's out there in the community for a possibility for individuals with memory loss. It's not the be-all, end-all. That's why we're all up here. But it is an option for some people, and I'm glad to see a lot of familiar faces. So thank you for being here.
Hi, my name is Janice Satoli. I'm the manager over at the Julia Ruth House. We are an adult day social center. We are open Monday through Friday from 7:30 to 5, and we currently have between 22 and 25 guests a day. Some guests live alone and just come for the socialization, get out of the house, and we have all different situations, but it does give the caregivers a break to come, spend the day. We do serve breakfast, a lunch, it's all catered, and we do high tea in the afternoon. So we do have, a wide variety of different levels of people with dementia, so we do offer a lot of different activities, so there's something for everybody as well. So, yeah. That's about it.
Hi, everyone. My name is Cheryl Leary. I'm from HESCO Elder Services. HESCO stands for Health and Social Services Consortium. We provide state-funded and federally funded services for 12 towns, Westwood being one of them, kind of in that Dedham down to Plainville stretch of communities. And I'll just list off a few of the programs that we do provide, just so that it plants a seed, and if you have any questions about something specific, you can ask that. But we do state-subsidized in-home care and support. We do the Meals on Wheels program. We do a program called Family Caregiver Support Program, which is a federal program. We do options counseling. And we also have protective services, which responds in cases of abuse and neglect. And we also have the SHINE program, which stands for Serving Health Insurance Needs of Everyone, that provides unbiased health insurance counseling. So we have a real myriad of programs, and if you have any questions about them, I'll be glad to answer.
Hi, my name is Lena. And most of you, if you're over 60, you should be coming to me, okay? I'm very grateful for everyone in this group because I know you all, minus the gentleman at the end. We work very closely with all of these people. I run the Westwood Council on Aging. It's the senior center over in Nahattan Street. I like to say we do everything from A to Y, from art to yoga. We tried Zumba, it failed, so we only do A to Y. We have all kinds of programs. We have exercise programs. We have health programs. We have lectures. We do day trips. We're going to Quebec for a week. We do everything. I have our newsletter here. If you live in Westwood and you're over 60, I hope you get it. If you don't, you need to let me know. And we have a lot of fun. I always like to say at the senior center, these people are smarter than me. They have more energy than me and a better life experience than I can imagine. And if you do need help, come to us because we can get you connected with all of these people. We work very hard, closely with Bridges. Again, I don't know the gentleman at the end, but we work. Yeah.
How do you find out people are over 60?
We have a list. How do you think? We work with the town clerk. And I have to say, I'm very proud to be a part of all of this, because they all know me, because we all work very closely together. And to be honest, I respect all of what you all do. For those of you who know me, we took care of my mother, so my sisters and I. So this was very real to me. Aside from professionally, personally, I did it as well. And Peter helped us and sort of figured out what to do. And, you know, I think we're all in this together, and I don't ever want anyone to feel isolated. So if you're starting to feel isolated, or you're starting to feel like you've hit a wall, and I get it. So come see us, and we can help open that door, or make you at least see some sunshine a little bit.
Maybe we can open it up for some questions. If you want the mic, unless you don't want the mic, it's totally fine. We're here for a while, so, and you can obviously get up and get something if you want. The bathroom's across the way out here. So does anybody have a burning question that they'd like to ask?
Hi, I was wondering, from the Cornerstone woman, hi. You said you were approved by the VA. What does that actually entail?
So anyone that wants to, they're a federal agency, the Veteran Administration, so you have to go through a vetting process they use a vendor, for lack of a better word, named Optum. So you fill out an extensive application process. It can take many, many months. Our corporate headquarters for Cornerstone Caregiving is out of Texas, so there's a woman out in our Texas office that oversees all the applications for Cornerstone offices. Once you go through the vetting and application process with the Veterans Administration, Optum that represents them is hired by them to do this process, will approve or deny you to be accepted by the Veterans Administration to be a vendor to take care of veterans who have earned the benefit through their service. So they go have primary care, VA physician, work with this case manager or social worker at the VA. If people know about Cornerstone Caregiving and they have a veteran that's approved, they can request me. I'm on the list. There's a lot of other agencies that are approved as well. Or I, more than likely, the VA, because of where I'm located, the services I provide, they will reach out to me, tell me about a case, ask if I'm able to accept the case, and then they will send me an authorization. And they dictate how many hours the veteran gets per week of care. And that could be, I have some veterans that I do 6 hours a week. That's what the VA's approved for them to get paid care. And I have some VA clients that go all the way up to 44 hours a week. That's the VA. I don't have anything to do with that. That has to do with their doctor and the VA's own internal process of determining the benefit that they're qualified for.
And I can help you with that too. So at the senior center, we also have what's called a VSO, a Veteran Service Officer. You can make an appointment, and we love Courtney. You guys are really good. But we can help them with the paperwork to get the individual veteran approved. I can't do it, but we have, because it's not my area of expertise. But every Monday we have a VSO, a Veteran Service Officer, who comes, and they can help you with the paperwork.
Hi, I'm sorry I forgot your name, but the lady in black. In black. Cheryl. Cheryl? Are you the HESCO lady? Yes. Okay. You mentioned a family caregiving something. I've heard that's just for people on Medicaid.
Nope, I would like to expand on that. So the Family Caregiver Support Program is a federally funded program. It provides informational counseling to family caregivers who are struggling with the issues that come up with caregiving, as I'm sure many of you in this room understand. And it helps the caregiver develop an action plan and connect to resources to kind of figure out how to alleviate their own stress. It's sort of the only time in sort of this care system where the caregiver is the client. And that's sort of a really important dynamic for us. We're very, it's really important for us to really talk to caregivers, understand what they're going through, and help them figure it out. We have a caregiver support group that happens twice a month via Zoom. So it's free access to a caregiver specialist is essentially what that program provides. There is no income requirement for it, and there is no charge for it. There are other programs that are caregiver related that might be Mass Health programs or Medicaid programs, but this one is completely different.
And my other question is, your name's Lena?
Mm-hmm.
Do you service just residents of Westwood?
Oh, no. Anyone that wants to come, as Larry said, we don't have any shame. We take money from the federal and state government, so anybody can come. We invite people to come, and we try and help as many people as we can.
So they would have access to your services even if they're not Westwood residents?
I should be careful. We can connect you with services, even if you're not a Westwood resident.
Thank you.
Another question?
Most towns have a council on aging.
Yeah, most towns. What town are you from?
I'm in Boston.
Boston.
Yeah, most places have councils on aging. And if you're from Boston, and is the person that you're looking for help living in Westwood, or it's best if you stay in the community, wherever you are, only because those resources could be very specific to that town. So sometimes it's best to do that. But you can always come to us and we can tell you to go.
A lot of people are here probably to wonder, how do you plan, for their loved one, caregiving? What are some like maybe the top three, and anybody can answer this, but what are your top three things you think that anybody who is struggling in the context of their loved one, whether it's a husband or wife or a parent, what should they be doing to kind of plan for when and if? I work with, and Maggie does too, a lot of families will say, well, when is it time to do whatever it is, the support? What are some of the things that they should be doing right now? Did you want to say something? Okay. Yeah, go ahead. Thanks.
Well, I'm the lawyer, so I can help you out with planning. So one of the things you want to do, I think I alluded to that in my brief opening, the two most important documents anyone can have is a durable power of attorney, comprehensive, and also a healthcare proxy. So let's forget trusts and wills and things like that. You want to stay out of probate court. Why? It's expensive, it's confusing, they're overrun, they just don't have enough manpower to process cases, and so if you need something on an emergency basis, you're in the worst place in the world. It's government, and it takes a long time to get things done. So what can a healthcare proxy do? A healthcare proxy can prevent you from having to get a guardian appointed for someone. Very, very important. And the healthcare proxy, there's forms everywhere. It's better if you have one that's a little bit more comprehensive, that has a HIPAA release within it, and has a little bit more meat in it than the plain form that you can get anywhere. But having just the basics is better, certainly, than nothing. If you go in a probate court, I don't do that type of work anymore. It's $3,000 to $5,000 to get a guardian appointed, and you're not going to get anything done on time. If your person who you're caring for is in the hospital, and there's a disagreement over treatment and you don't have a healthcare proxy, then you have to get a guardianship, and then a big fight breaks out. And under a time of stress, it's really a horrible thing to have to go into court. A power of attorney helps you with their assets. So if you're married to someone and you're not on their bank account, you can't touch their bank account. And so the power of attorney, if it's properly done, mine's about 17 pages long. You can't tell a document is great because of its length, but I've seen powers of attorney a page long, page and a half, 2 pages. Mine has about 60 groups of powers, and every year I probably change it 10 or 12 times because we want them to work. So if you don't have a power of attorney and your name's not on anyone's accounts and they're disabled, again, you're going into probate court and seeking a conservator. Same thing, $3 to $5 grand in legal. It won't get done overnight. It will take months. And you might need access to money right away to hire a caregiver, to, you know, assisted living, whatever it might be. So those two documents, the durable power of attorney and the healthcare proxy document, HIPAA medical release, are the two most important documents that anyone can have. If someone came to me with an estate worth a couple of $1 million, said, Brian, we need trusts, we need this, I want to make sure my kids get it, my in-laws don't, which is what you often hear, I say, well, let's start with your healthcare proxy, let's start with your power of attorney, because those are during your lifetime, and you can't do anything without it for a disabled person. So I think that's the place to start. And then, of course, you know, if you need, you know, wills and trust, obviously you have them done. But when anyone is showing any signs, certainly, of forgetfulness, or you think they're really sliding, you really need to get them into the lawyer's office and get it done right away. And the documents aren't all created equal. You can tell the difference. In a power of attorney, if the specific thing you want to do isn't in the power of attorney document, it will not be inferred, it will not be implied, it doesn't exist, and the power of attorney is therefore useless. That's why I say a comprehensive power of attorney. So, any questions on any of that?
I just add one comment.
Yes, sir.
Brian is my attorney. It was just by chance that I'd gone to him. We did some traveling back in 2009 and actually went to Medjugorje to celebrate my wife getting over her cancer. And so we got all of this done, and we've had it updated since then as needed. But I can tell you that when Marion got sick and we ended up having to go to the hospital for this and that, it just made it a lot easier because I had those documents, and there wasn't any question about me having, you know, guardianship over her. And the things that you know, we thought about and included in the documents initially, she wouldn't remember any of that now. And so you can imagine it would be a heck of a chore trying to set that up and profess that you know exactly how the patient feels when you may or may not anymore.
Yeah, it's true. And then the other thing, too, that's very common today is end-of-life treatment. You know, do I want more surgery? What if I am in a persistent vegetative state? What if I can't see, talk, hear? Would I want more treatment? Do I want the doctors practicing on me? Do I want this? Do I want that? Probably 8 out of 10 people who come to see me say, if I have no meaningful existence, I really don't want any more treatment. I'd like them to, you know, keep me comfortable and let me go. And those types of instructions are called advanced medical directives, and those can be put in a healthcare proxy document. And they're very important because then the person gets what they want out of their life or at the end of their life. And more importantly for the caregiver, they don't have to guess. What would Ma want? What would Dad want? What would my cousin want, or my boyfriend, my girlfriend, my wife, my husband? You know, it takes the guesswork out of that for the person that's the caregiver. Because, you know, a lot of people don't talk about these things. Unfortunately, my older sister passed away 3 months ago. They never talked about anything. It was a nightmare. And, you know, so really talk about it. It really helps because people will remember what you told them. You know, my other half knows what I want, and it's important, I think, to talk about it because you don't need a lengthy discussion. Just what would you do, you know, if this happened or that happened, and for yourselves as well, you know.
I'm just going to say that,
Yeah.
It's not only if you're a caregiver, but even, you know, at any age, we never know what's going to happen to us. So whether, even if you're healthy at this point in time, we don't know what's going to happen in the near future. So I think those discussions, even for ourselves, are important to have, and make sure they're well known and shared with their family members. So when it gets to that point, if you do decide on a healthcare agent, then there's no question because you know that, you know, your sister, your mom, your dad, your best friend, this is what she or he wanted, and there's no question about it. So it's one thing to have a healthcare agent, but it's another thing for everyone to know who that is and that everyone's in agreement with what they decided.
Sure, and you raise a good point, too. You know, none of us are guaranteed a tomorrow, And that's why you want to have alternates in these documents too. And you alluded to very nicely that, you know, you got to take care of your own things too. I wish I'd live healthily for another 40 years. Maybe I will. I could be dead tomorrow. You just don't know. You know, in 40 years I've seen everything happen, and you think the spouse in the nursing home is going to go first, and all of a sudden the healthy caregiver's gone, and you just don't know. There was a question back there, and then I'll hand the mic off. What do you mean, post-dated? You mean it take effect in the future? Well, yeah, that's very common. It's called a springing power of attorney. And what you do is you sign the power of attorney and say, this power of attorney will be activated upon one of the following events. One, if I become incapacitated. Then the document describes what incapacitated means. I also have in mind if I'm detained. I've had clients in prison. I've had clients that couldn't get back into the country. So you want to put down all the possible bad things that could happen to you. There's about 4 or 5 general categories. And then you can say if one of those things happens, then this power of attorney or this healthcare proxy could be activated. For husbands and wives, I usually just say it's activated right away. So if a husband gets sick, then the wife doesn't have to get a doctor's letter or something like that, because getting medical reports can be really hard. Doctors don't like writing letters. They don't like writing reports. So it can be a double-edged sword. You know, the idea is to not have someone take over your assets while you're still fine and they clean you out. But by the same token, if you want, you know, if you're disabled and you want the help, you don't want to put up a ton of roadblocks either. You know, sometimes it says, you know, you need a medical report. Sometimes the doctors won't write it. Then they think, oh, there's a lawyer involved and someone's going to sue me and there's going to be a big fight. So that can be a double-edged sword as well. Does that help? Okay.
Tangentially, and also for full disclosure, Brian is my family's estate planning attorney. This is not staged, by the way. Brian is the Eric Maxwell. And I've recently become a primary caregiver. And just kind of back into some of the sentiments, I'm like literally running around with the healthcare proxy for my mom and verbal power of attorney on me at all times. And one of the things, for example, I'm also a customer of Cornerstone. And one of the things that they talked about is if the caregiver, my Cornerstone agent, to have that advanced care directive and also the healthcare proxy available, so that if they have to call 911, that's known there if they can't get a hold of me. And I guess my question that I'm leading up to, by the way, is I'm trying to figure out, like, for the healthcare proxy. I mean, I'm running around now with my mom going to doctor's appointments, and I've got it with me, and I'm declaring my situation. How do I get that on file? Is it easy to do? Is there, how do I make sure that all my mom's doctors know that this is what it is?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea to bring your healthcare proxy to the physicians. What they usually do now is they'll scan it in for you, you know, because the caveat is you don't want anyone grabbing the original from you. You know, so for powers of attorney too, don't let the bank take your original power of attorney because you'll never see it again. And what we do is when we're done, we scan them in, so we always have an executed copy at the office anyway. But yeah, it's a great idea. And I guess we're getting old, Eric. I used to have baseball gloves, hockey stick in my trunk, maybe a case of beer now and then. Now I have my healthcare proxy power of attorney, my other halves, and those of my daughter as well. So, but there's no central location. But you know, sometimes you could be in Stewart Healthcare, Tufts, MGH, Brigham. You know, once it's in that system, then all the doctors can access it as well. But I think it's a great idea. You could even put them on thumbnails and leave it with, you know, the assistants at the hospital, at the doctors, and things like that. But yeah, great idea to have them on record. And you know, healthcare proxies aren't just for catastrophic situations. I had 2 knee replacements June 18th, 2018. There's a lot of sports injuries, but I brought my healthcare proxy in because the doctor said, I don't know if we can do both. I said, well, so I brought in instructions, said, do the right one first if you can't do both. If there's any questions, don't wake me up. Ask my other half, here's her healthcare proxy, and ask her what to do, and I told her what to do. So these documents can be good for catastrophic situations and also routine situations as well.
I just find there's a practical element too, which is, you know, if a medical professional is screening my mother they're probably gonna get exceptionally misleading information. You know, my mom doesn't remember a lot of things that happened to her in the last 10 years. And hopefully, you know, I'm not sure how thoroughly they're checking their computer database for all the records, but when I'm saying, yeah, she had a myocardial infarction, aka a heart attack 6 months ago, she doesn't remember that. It's kind of important. So it's a tough one to navigate there, to make sure that the healthcare professionals are, and I know that they're trained to deal directly with the patient and not have any interfere, but making sure that they're getting the full picture and all the information they need is important too. So one of the things I've learned.
If I might, just real quick, one of the worst things I think healthcare providers do is take histories. They routinely, I'm not here to trash doctors, we all need them, but they routinely make errors and mistakes. When I go to the doctor now, I type up a sheet. A lot of them ignore it, but I bring in it anyway. So, you know, you might want to do that for your mom. Just type up, a bullet point, 1 page or something like that, because that can really help.
Like an executive summary, like this big stuff you gotta know.
Yeah, sorry, Sheila.
No, if a healthcare proxy is invoked, then they will have to come to you for all that information anyways.
And I just want to share a state initiative, well, and actually it's passed in legislation, of a central registry that's coming down the pike. So right now in the state, we have legislation around a medical order for life-sustaining treatment. It's called a MOLST. And it is a legally binding medical order, and it's usually done for people who have advanced and serious illness. We are changing in the state to what's called a PULST system, which is portable orders for life-sustaining treatment. And this process is taking place right now where the state has gone out to bid for like the registry part of it, the digital part of it. So it will include a digital part where if somebody has a PULST, it will be entered into a central registry within the state. And so that no matter where you are, whether you're in Stewart, whether you're at Tufts, Brigham and Women's, whatever system you're in, there's a central registry where that information can be found. They are a second or later phase of that is to hopefully include the healthcare proxy in that. So can you imagine how great that will be when we can actually have a statewide central registry? And there's even talk, and this might be pie in the sky stuff, but you know how when we go to renew our license, we can actually get entered into the organ donor registry. Well, there's some hope that maybe healthcare proxy could also be a part of that process. And I think that would just be an amazing change because I agree with everyone saying, you know, age 18 and up, you should have a healthcare proxy. And I always say the biggest gift that you give that person that's willing to be your proxy is the information about what you want for care. That's your gift, your thanks to them to say, okay, you're going to do this for me. I'm going to tell you what I want. So like you said, takes the guessing out.
Sure, you know what else you raised another, we're talking mostly probably here for older people. But you know, parents send their children away to college all the time without healthcare proxies and powers of attorney. And if you have children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, it's really important for them to have it. If something happened, can you imagine flying out to Oregon, California, Indiana, you don't know anyone, and you're just in the hospital and you know, no one, like, who are you? Do you have this? Do you have that? It would be horrible.
And I can share personally, for a good reason. Let's share for a not so, instead of a bad reason like a medical crisis, but when I sent my son off at age 18 into the Army, I did have him do these documents, and one of the times when he was deployed, he needed a vehicle for when he returned home, and the fact that I had his power of attorney allowed me to purchase that vehicle and register it all in his name so that it was ready the day he got off the plane from his deployment. So, you know, sometimes there's positive reasons why we want to have these documents in place, so.
And just so you know, we see a lot of health proxies and power of attorneys that can sometimes be, we tell people to carry everything, start a notebook, keep all your stuff together, 3-ring notebook with it. Doctors are wonderful, but they don't always pay attention to the details. Keep a 3-ring notebook. In the long run, you're saving yourself a lot of heartache. We tell people that all the time. The second you start keeping track of everything, because Mistakes happen. And I love what's going to happen at the state level because I've been following this too. But that hasn't happened yet. So please, just be careful.
I heard that the different hospital systems, due to HIPAA laws, are not actually.
They
allowed
don't talk to each other.
Which
Yeah.
is, so,
They-
you got part of your records in, Brigham Women's, and then you go to Beth Israel, and they're kind of.
So that was why we became a MOLST state and to begin with, was because the MOLST form, the medical orders for life-sustaining treatment, is required by law to be portable amongst whatever setting you have. But our digital systems don't talk to each other, so there's a lot of, onus on the consumer to make sure that they're bringing that document everywhere. So yes, they might have to follow the medical orders, but if they don't know the medical orders exist, they can't.
Does everyone know what a MOLST is?
And it's medical orders for life-sustaining treatment, and it's typically used for somebody that has a pretty advanced or serious illness. And it just walks through several questions around, what you would want in terms of life-sustaining treatment. What I think is important about it is that it really helps you think about things that you may not have considered life-sustaining treatment. I think, myself included, when you kind of think of that, you only think of CPR. You only think of the ventilator, the big breathing tube. There's non-invasive ventilation, there's dialysis, there's artificial hydration. There's just a lot of different things to consider when it comes, feeding tubes, absolutely. So there's a lot to consider when it comes to life-sustaining treatment, and this form does work through all those questions and becomes a medical order then that all physicians and hospital systems will have to follow. It can only be filled out with a physician assistant, or a nurse practitioner.
Does the family member request the MOLST?
They can, they should, if they feel that it would be something important for their loved one. In certain circumstances, it has kind of become an automatic thing that it's done for certain people. I know when a lot of people enter into a skilled nursing facility, it might be done automatically. What I would say is to definitely consult the primary care physician on what their opinion is, if we can do a MOLST for your loved one. The way they've kind of trained some of the physicians is sort of to ask them if you would be surprised if this person passed away over the next year, and if the answer to that is no, they should have a MOLST in place. There's sort of no magic formula as to when someone should or shouldn't have a MOLST. I mean, well, they should all have a MOLST if they're really considered in a later stage of any advanced or serious illness.
You could access one online too if you want to look and see what they offer.
And kind of in that category, can someone kind of elaborate on the difference between palliative care and hospice care? Do you get anyone's?
So hospice care is provided when an individual is determined by a physician that they perhaps have 6 months or less of a diagnosis of life. Now, we know there's no science to that, and some people can stay on for hospice for even years, and it just gets renewed every 6 months. But it is something that has to go through a physician. Palliative care is care that alleviates symptoms, makes people more comfortable. It's not necessarily attached to a life-limiting diagnosis. And in fact, anyone of any age can get palliative care if they're undergoing, some type of painful procedure or something where they need that additional relief. So the focus of palliative care is much more around making sure that somebody has their goals set for what they want to get out of their care, and that they're comfortable and they're ushered through that care process.
And the other thing is, when you're in hospice, there's some things people don't realize. If you do a particular hospice group, you don't use your primary care physician any longer. You use the hospice care. You don't go to the emergency room anymore. You use the hospice. To me, that's the huge difference, because it is end of life, and it could be a year and a half, but it's a very different way of looking at it than when you're doing palliative care. Very different. and it's a big difference.
Could I also, back to your original question about where you kind of start, I do want to make sure you know that HESCO is the area agency on aging for Westwood and the other 11 communities. So we're charged by the federal government to make sure that we maintain a database of resources available in our area. So you can call the HESCO Information and Referral department, and they can guide you whether it's on a HESCO program or any other program. And for example, what would happen if somebody called us and we said, well, we think you need an elder law attorney, we would give you 3 names, of which Brian might be one of them. And, you know, we would provide you with that information. It doesn't matter that it's not necessarily funded or supported through HESCO. We are charged by the federal government to make sure we are supporting all older adults in our community.
I've got a question. So, and this is really for Lena and for Janice. You all both really focus on a social piece, And I'd like to hear a little bit about why you've seen that it's important as part of what you do, why that helps our folks, you know, positively, especially coming out of what we just went through with the pandemic, what you see as like real benefits of kind of like what you provide at your places.
I think one of the big things we provide is we really worry about isolation and people being isolated. And we keep saying we're not a nursing home. You have to be independent to come to the senior center. And we're very clear about that. It's different than the Julia Ruth House. And that's the big difference between us. You have to be independent. But we have transportation. We have all kinds of events going on every single day. I do have a newsletter if you'd like to look at what we do. But it's our charge to help people stay active and stay age in place. And we really work hard. But isolation is probably the one thing we work our hardest at, is to make sure people aren't isolated. And I don't worry about the people who come to the center because I know, like your mother. I know, we know them all, and they're wonderful, and we do over 3,000 seniors a month in and out of our center. I mean, we are a very active center. I worry about the people I don't see, because those are the people I don't know, and that really worries me. So please, if you have a neighbor, a friend, a family member, and you live in Westwood, tell them to come by, because we really would love to meet them and help them in any way. But Julia Ruth House does something very different than what we do.
So one of the main concerns is for that one of the things we see mostly too is caregiver burnout. It's really a huge, you know, we get calls every day. I don't know what to do. I haven't been out of this house. They just sit and watch TV, and then they sleep all day, and they're up all night, and I'm exhausted, and, you know, what do you guys do? What can I do? And that's mostly what we hear. And we do provide, like I said, a lot of, you know, exercise class. We do painting, all different. So there's something for everybody. We probably have now, I would say, upwards around 22 to 25 people a day. And like I said, we're there from 7:30 to 5, and we do provide, like, you know, all kinds of activities during the day. But, you know, then we hear the feedback. Oh, they're sleeping during the night. They're exhausted. I actually got a good night's sleep, you know. So, you know, at the same time, we're really a transitional place before that next step has to happen. You know what I mean? Whether it be memory care, assisted living, whatnot. But for us, like you said, the isolation is a lot of the problem we hear with people. Like, you know, what am I gonna do? He follows me around the house all day. This, that. But it's yeah, that's one of the things I would have to say. The isolation, the caregiver burnout, that are two of the main things that, you know, I hear. Probably, I don't know, I would say probably it's 10 calls a month on that, I would say, probably. No less than that, that's for sure. Yeah. So the Julia Ruth House is $120 a day with a 2-day minimum. So you pick your days, you know, we can sort of help you with that too. A lot of people, one of their fears is that they've got home health aides that they do not want to lose. If you find a great home health aide, you know, you don't want to lose them. So we try to help them like work around the days that they don't, you know, they can have that support at home and yet come to us and, you know. So, yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to word this correctly, but do you have like an interview process to see where the person is at in the disease or where they are mentally?
That's a great question. So what we do is we offer a no charge, a trial day. So that's how we do that. They come in from like 10 to 2, you know, that's our busiest time of the day. And then we sort of assess the whole situation, see what would be good days for them, if it would be a good fit or not. Sometimes it's too soon for people to come to us. They're not ready for that. Some people just don't, they're not ready for that. And so, yeah, that's a great question. But, yeah, we do a trial day.
Certain guidelines that we can go by when they are ready or when they're past that point?
You know what? That is a wide range there. So we have some people, like I said, that still live alone that come to us, you know, during the day, take the ride, the transportation on their own. They come on their own. And then we have other people that probably should be looking towards the next level of care, assisted living, memory care. But the family members are, you know, if they've got the support, they keep them there. I find they're keeping them home longer too. So yeah, we have all different, that's a wide range.
And we meet with a lot of families that come to Bridges and their loved ones. We talk about a lot of families that come to see us, it may not be the right time to move into memory care. And so in that situation, they aren't familiar with Adult Day Health. They aren't familiar with Julia Ruth. And we work so closely together that I talk with them. We have their brochure at our community, and they're like, well, I don't know, you know, if my mom's going to do well there. She's not very social. And I said, well, give it a try. Like, give it a try. It sounds like from what you're telling me, that she actually would do well. Right. She hasn't ever been in that situation, so you don't really know. Right. Especially since she's now, you know, middle stage of dementia. So a lot of times I get feedback after the fact, and it might be hard to bring them. They don't want to go, and hard to drop off. But you can't. They spend the day there. They have a great time, and they're like, "Wait, it's time to go."
Right.
So they actually do very, very well.
Right. But at the same time, some families will say, you know, I think it's time. I think it's time. And we'll say, go ahead, go over, go talk to Pete, go talk to Maggie, go see what it's all about. Get your ducks in a row. I mean, you know, and people like to hear that too. You know, might be time to start thinking about you're not sleeping at night. You know, it's too much, you know. And so we try to help with that too, you know.
And as Pete said, like the importance of interaction and stimulation, that's huge. I mean, that's why programs like yours are so beneficial, because it keeps the clients busy and engaged. They're not sitting there watching TV, and so that's a huge piece of their success.
Isolation actually has some of the same medical effect as smoking cigarettes. I believe it was something like smoking a pack a day. If you're isolated, I mean, so if we think of it that way, it highlights the importance and value of having a senior center or adult day health program or residential, or having people come into your home to provide care. That connection is really important to maintain health.
In the Native American cultures, one of the worst forms of punishment for them was banishment. You gotta leave, put them out on their own. They saw that as the worst form of punishment, so you can imagine people being isolated. It's terrible.
Humans are social beings. We have to be with other people.
Kind of a dual Debbie/Maggie question, right? So, the demented who is resistant to care, to change, to in-home care, for example, from Cornerstone, to when the family realizes that you need to kind of move to an assisted living, but there's going to be a denial of, do you draw someone to, and I see, for example, this as a socialization aspect, a peace of mind, taking meal prep out of the equation, not having Monday disconnected the stove for my mom, taking that out of the equation. You know, how do you kind of draw someone so that they're drawn to it versus, Mom, we gotta do this, I'm sorry. You know, how do you approach that conversation?
I was gonna say, you go first.
A lot of times too, you know, I know, well, you know, we'll say at the Julia Ruth House too, is sometimes we tell them, you know what, your doctor has recommended this. It's a safety issue now. It's not safe for you to be at home. The doctor has recommended. A lot of times, you'd be surprised when they think it's a doctor's recommendation. Sometimes that makes things a little easier. We find that though. Oh.
I think it's really important because everybody is different. Every family situation is different. Everybody's process, you know, way they move through a disease process is different. And so as a family member, I always say, you know your person best. You know, that's your strength as a family member. That's an important thing to remember. You know your person best. So think through what you think your loved one, what's the hook for them? And I'll give you an example. We had somebody that wouldn't go see a physician and hadn't been in years and was adamant. And I said to the son, you know, what would be important to him? And he said, if he feels like he can, like, pull one over on the physician, like he doesn't want to pay their rates. And I said, okay, well, let's talk about how there's a 2-for-1 physical going on. You're going to get a physical and I'm going to get a physical. So your physical's free, Dad. Guess what? He went because he liked pulling one over on the physician, right? Like that was important to him. So it's about finding sort of, you know, especially when somebody has a memory impairment like that, it's about finding what the hook is for them, what's going to be important for them.
I think you said that.
Are your services available statewide to everybody in the state?
Yes. Yes, every city and town has an aging service access point in the state of Massachusetts assigned to it. So we, as I said, have 12 communities, but there's the entire, all 351 cities and towns in the state of Massachusetts has the same services.
I was wondering, is there,
Attorney, can you give a sample of one of the things that you put into the power of attorney that is unusual, that you would add that somebody else might not have? You said you put in a lot of different.
16 pages.
Yeah, so I just give one of the examples.
Well, there's signing checks, banking, retirement plan assets, income taxes, signing someone into or out of a nursing facility, assisted living. Digital assets is popular now, cryptocurrency, email accounts, Facebook, you name it, it's in there. Selling real estate, working with my trust, putting things into the trust, taking things out of the trust. Gifts to children is common, gifts to your spouse. Medicaid applications is huge, it has to be in the power of attorney. If you don't have in the power of attorney, they can complete a long-term care application. Mass Health might not let you complete a Mass Health application, which could be catastrophic and you're in probate court. Things like that. Does that help? Yeah. Thank you.
To the question of that.
I was wondering, the cost of adult daycare, is that covered by Medicare or other insurance?
It's not, we're all private, no.
Really?
Mass Health will cover adult day health programs, and there are some adult day health programs that do accept Mass Health, but you have to be assessed by and deemed eligible for that service. So the HESCO nurses staff, and for example, in our 12 towns, we do that assessment for the state. And so also if you cannot afford a private pay situation, you could also potentially access adult day health services through a home care service plan through the aging service access point like HESCO.
Can anyone comment relative to common safety concerns when you're keeping a loved one in the house? I know you talk about disconnecting the stove, things like that. What I found is you talk to different people, and they'll give you little bits and pieces, and it's like, well, check here, check there, check there, and you check around, and you find there's 50 different alarm systems for the exit doors in your house, and just oddball things like that that you stumble across literally. You know, is there a place you can go where some of these things are listed?
I know the Alzheimer's Association actually has some really great checklists and various materials like that that you can certainly go through. Certainly having an in-home safety assessment is something that can be done in various different ways. Of a physical therapist, if it's referred through your the physician, can actually do a home safety evaluation, mainly related to more ambulation issues, not necessarily just, handrails, throw rugs, things like that.
So as Art you mentioned, you're going through a whole series of things. It's like when Maggie and I meet with folks, and I'm sure it's like this with everybody up here too, is that folks try to do these precautionary things all the time. And it seems like, especially with dementia, dementia is a progressive disease. It's part of the process is that folks decline. So it always seems to be that when there's something like you try to undo the gas stove, there's a line that gets crossed. And then the next thing happens, that I've had families come in and say, I have cameras all over. I had one family that I was working with, and they are actually up in Vermont. And they said, I have cameras all over the house. And my aunt never leaves the house. And but you can see, and they took their cell phone and they showed me, and they've got the cameras, and you see what she's doing right now? She's been there at the table reading the paper for 2.5 hours, and she hasn't left. I said, oh, that's great, that's great. You looks like you got it all covered. I said, what happens if things change? And they said, what? What do you mean it's gonna change? I said, well, what if, it's so unpredictable. The most predictable thing about dementia in particular is that it's unpredictable. So they said, well, we do have a neighbor down the street, and they can go by and check on this. And I said, oh, that's okay. 4 months later, they came, they called and said this. She left, and she went down, and it was in the middle of the winter. And she said, they said it's time, and everybody's time frame is a little bit different. But there's other things that folks try to do to keep folks as long in the home as possible. I don't know how many people are in this room that ever had their loved ones say, don't ever do this. And that's kind of why we have, elder law attorneys, and we have people who can kind of guide you along of trying to make that inroad. It's not easy. It's not easy. I remember my mom, I went ahead and asked her, will you please, I begged her, please get an elder law attorney, have a will, have a power of attorney, healthcare proxy. She was deathly afraid of it. She ended up a month and a half later, after she said, okay, I'll go ahead and get a power of attorney, she had an aortic aneurysm and died. And so it went into probate. And thankfully in Maine, it went a little bit quicker. It was, for whatever reason, it was pretty swift. But the problem is that we try to do these precautionary things, and sometimes we do get resistance. There are things that you can do, such as in the house, file of life. If you've ever heard of that, look it up, file of life. You can have, there they go. There they are. Great. No.
Go ahead, go. Continue.
The file of life is just going to give you the most down and dirty information you need, so that if there's as has already been said, have all your ducks in an order, have a file and all that. This is just the down and dirty thing.
Everybody should have one of these in their wallet, everybody. It has the name of your emergency contact, your prescription drugs, your primary care physician. They're free, we buy them all the time, we have them at the center all the time. Feel free to grab one on your way out. Everybody should have one. Not just people with dementia or else, everybody should have one.
couple other things, thanks, Lena, and a couple other things I'll just mention is, people, there's these new technologies, of if somebody is a wanderer, they have these little things you can put on their body or in their shoe or whatever that'll kind of track them, and that's all well and good. There are obviously having conversations with family members and making sure that they know where somebody is, and it's really about communication. So if you have a really nice neighbor, or if you have behind every person who has a form of dementia, because it's kind of what we're talking about is dementia, or folks who are having some difficulty with maybe some physical stuff, whatever. It's really important to have that communication, in that, behind one person, there's usually 3 or 4 people that are kind of supporting the cast of characters. If you don't have that, certainly, access these cast of characters up here, because you never know if you might need them or not. And I would say for most of us, we get those phone calls, whether it's 10 a month or whatever it is. We're always getting calls about crisis. And if you're planning ahead, then you're more apt to, when the time comes, oh my goodness, my mom just went in for a hip replacement. What is she going to do? She's got stairs going up her house. Well, call Debbie, right? Maybe she can help you with some temporary or permanent care. Or, oh, I need to go ahead and find out about, meals. I can't get over there and deliver food to my mom. Well, here's Meals on Wheels from the senior center, right? And every senior center has something like that. It's actually one of the great hidden gems of going and having Meals on Wheels, because it's at least once a day.
So, yeah, once a day that someone actually knocks on your door. We work very closely with HESCO. This is why General and I know each other so well. And once a day, they'll knock on your door. They'll bring you it's a simple meal. It's not anything to write home. But the most important thing is someone's checking on you. Someone's knocking on your door, and if they don't answer, HESCO gets called.
And more than 80% of our Meals on Wheels consumers tell us they feel less lonely because of their driver.
And the driver gets, oh my goodness. Sometimes we have to tell the driver, okay, why did it take you 2.5 hours? I'm not talking to Ann.
It's an important safety check. If they don't answer the door, or if things just don't seem right, that driver has to make sure the meal site manager, which works out of the Westward Council on Aging in this case, who has to call HESCO, and we do a safety check. And if we can't reach them by like 2 in the afternoon, we're calling the police and sending them out there. And we have literally saved lives with this program.
Here's some other things too, is the Silver Alert. You can go to your local police station, fire department, register your loved one to make sure that they have information, about their needs as well, so that it's kind of like an added, they don't have to go through the whole issue about when they come up to a house and not having any idea what to expect. They already kind of know, okay, this is Walter, and we know a little bit about his family. His family, might be out of state. We have this information. So there's ways to know, what kinds of supports are out there. Also, HESCO, you all have a lot of, I don't want to say a lot, but you have some funding for folks that are in serious need. Short-term stuff. I worked up in Andover with the equivalent of HESCO, and out of their area, and they have programs for, if someone needed, tell me if it exists still or not, but for like refrigerators or some oil for the winter time, or some food, or these services that nobody really accesses unless you really know about it.
Right, we do. We have a couple of different funds. In fact, the state actually has a fund that all of the aging service access points can access, specifically for women over age 60. And because that leaves a gap for men, HESCO has sought private grant funding so that we also have a similar program for men over age 60. And we've bought refrigerators, we might buy a mattress. Somebody has like COPD in the summer and they need an air conditioner to be able to breathe at home. It can be a lift chair. We've, had suddenly homeless older adults that we've had to put up in a hotel. So certainly there can be, some of those life things that come up that if you are in serious financial need, that we can sometimes fill that gap.
Could you name the 12
communities that HESCO serves? I'll do it alphabetically, because that's the only way I can do it.
Well, you don't have to know them by heart.
Oh, I do, I've worked there for long enough, I know them by heart. Canton, Dedham, Foxborough, Medfield, Millis, Norfolk, Norwood, Plainville, Sharon, Walpole, Westwood, Rentham. Oh my gosh, Cheryl. Don't know how many times I typed that out.
Someone asked about safety. This is really not for people with dementia, but for the rest of you, we actually partner a lot with the Westwood Fire Department, and if you look at my newsletter, please grab one on your way out. If you call us, we can get you on a list, and they will actually go to your house and do a fire safety check. And let me tell you, they're great. They walk around and they say, you shouldn't do this. They're not gonna, and they're wonderful. These guys are like 12 now. They're like in their 30s. But they're really young and smart. They're young and smart, and they're the Westwood Fire Department. So if you live in Westwood, and you would like them to come to your house, just call us. We'll put you on the list and we'll get you there. And then just another thing, because I think we'll probably come in towards the end.
Very close.
Okay, so if you live in Westwood, there's something I have to do. Can I just digress a little bit? Okay, so next Thursday, we're having a shredding day. Do people know about this? I did it on every kind of social media. From 10 to 1, it's in our parking lot. So you know all that confidential information that you're afraid to put in the recycling or in the trash? Bring it to us. You can have up to 3 bags. Staples and paper clips are fine. No 3-ring notebooks and none of those heavy clips. You just gotta drive in, rain or shine. We have volunteers, as we have this so organized. And they'll take it out of your car, they put it in the barrel, and it gets shredded. And it's through District Attorney Michael Morrissey's. So if you want, next Thursday, put it on your calendar. Get rid of all that paper that you just really, and if you're taking care of your mother, because I took care of my mother and you took care of her, there is just enormous amount of paper. Go through it, keep the pieces that you need, and bring the rest to us, and we will confidentially shred it for you. Just fine. Little PR, sorry.
Maybe 1 or 2 more questions.
Yeah, right. Do you guys have any guidance for family members who are dealing with a surviving parent, and if the time comes that we have to put her into a facility or community, where do we begin? Any major things to do or not do, to watch for? Any kind of advice, general advice on that?
A memory care community?
Yeah, or just because she lives at home, so just in case we have to start looking. I don't want to do this in a crisis.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I would definitely tour various communities, because it's not a one-size-fits-all. So you have to figure out kind of what you're looking for, what you think would work best for your loved one. Location's really important. You want to make sure you get there quickly. You want to be able to tour the community, look at the residents, see how they're dressed, see what they're doing, see how the staff is interacting with the residents, look at their life enrichment program, see if it seems very robust. Yeah. See if they're how much care they're able to provide. Some places have nurses 8 hours a day. Some places have nurses 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Which does make a difference, because as Pete did say, dementia is a progressive disease, and so cognitively there's a decline, but also physically there's a decline, and so it's important to have kind of the nursing oversight in a community. So I definitely think you should view different communities and see what you think works best. Put your name on the list, tell them that you're interested, get all the pricing information, find out exactly what you need to do up front.
And it's also from a criteria standpoint, like when is it time to do that? We actually do a presentation on that, but I can tell you that with working in this field for a long time, it's really different for different people. When is the time? It's when it's the pain threshold. How much are you going to want to do and keep things together and have these contingency plans and everything? And it's the same thing with, when is it time to go to an elder law attorney? When is it time to get home care? When is it time to go to an adult day program? When is it to reach out and say, I can't do it anymore. I can't do it anymore. I'm losing my mind. I'm losing my relationships with other people. I'm not taking care of myself. My doctor has said I'm going to have a heart attack if I don't do anything. My daughter has told me, you know, Ma, what are you doing to yourself? It's your pain threshold. And, you know, you can plan and utilize the people, but it really has to do, and everybody has a different, I have thousands of stories about, you know, some people trying to keep it together until the end, and some people do that. And that's what they want to do, because they, you know, till death do us part type of feel. And then we have other people who say, I'm out of the country, I'm out of the state, I can't do this, you know, help me. So it really depends on what that criteria is.
And I guess, if I can, because I know it's so hard to be a caregiver, we were talking about how serious isolation is for an older adult. Caregiving is incredibly isolating at times, and you need to think about your own health as a caregiver. And at one former life, I was a caregiver specialist at HESCO, and I used to ask caregivers to self-report, you know, how do you report your own health? Would it be good, fair, poor? And a disturbing trend was that very often the caregivers reported their health as poorer than the person they're caring for. And I'm just going to say, don't let it get into that point. Consider not just how the person you're caring for is functioning, consider how you're functioning as a caregiver. That has to be part of that equation. Like you said, it's like, how much can I do? But don't do it to the point where you're really putting yourself at risk, which is something that a lot of caregivers do.
Because remember, if you get sick, what's going to happen to the person that you're caring for?
Anybody else have a question? We're going to be here for a little bit afterwards, you know, certainly everybody, okay, well, thank you so much for coming tonight.